Everybody having a good morning so far? You want to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle, maybe, maybe not. I don't want you to actually tell me how your morning is. That would take too long. But you guys having a good morning? Yes? No? Maybe so? Yes. Did you guys have a good Thanksgiving?
Yes, it's incredible.
That's good. I'm glad you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I had a
It was
wonderful
incredible.
one. Yeah, we had a very busy Thanksgiving. We did like a Dipsgiving Wednesday, a Thanksgiving Thursday, and a
Nice.
Friendsgiving Saturday.
And you won.
And I won at Monopoly. Did anybody see that? I don't know if you guys follow me on Facebook, but yeah, I won at the family Monopoly game. You know, I am the champion. So
There you go.
I thank my dad for that.
It was a good day.
It was a good day. You know, I thought my dad was gonna win, but he ended up not winning. Real quick, did anybody what was your favorite dish? Someone just out there real quick, tell me what your favorite dish was for Thanksgiving. Pineapple
Oh,
casserole. That's not what I was expecting.
never heard
It's
of
not
that.
what I was expecting.
Yep, I never heard of that.
What was your favorite dish, Daniel?
My wife made a really good turkey. I thought
Nice.
turkey was
Good job, Rachel.
All right, good answer, Daniel.
Yeah, you gotta.
Good,
throw
good
that out
political
there.
answer there.
There
No,
you
but there was a
go.
lot of
I was-
lot of good stuff.
I always go with sweet potato. That's my favorite.
Sweet potatoes. All right. All right. Well,
No.
I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Welcome back. We are doing the First Things Forum. We have been talking about Christian wellness for the past few weeks. You guys been enjoying that? Yes. I think it's been
Yes.
great conversations that we've been having the past few weeks. This is going to be the last one that we have on Christian wellness. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. We have our brother Daniel and sister Kristen, the pastor's wife. So we are blessed to be honored by her presence. And today we're going to be talking about relationships, right?
Yeah.
So the scripture in Luke 10, Jesus says, love the Lord with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, right? But then what did he say right after that? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So he talked about the importance of the relationships with others, okay? So we're going to start with the scripture. 1 John 4:20 says this. If someone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? And this commandment we have from him, that he who loves God must love his brother also. So we know that relationships are important as Christians, right? Just in our Christian life, we know that they're important. Jesus pretty much made it clear that relationships are very important. So, Sister Kristen, I'm going to start with you. You've worked with people for many, many years, right? Let's just
A
say
few.
many years. Maybe
A
not
few.
many, many.
Many,
all right?
many. Yeah, you're adding too many decades on
Too
there.
many minis on there? All right. So for many years, what do you see as the biggest challenges for having and maintaining healthy relationships?
Well, there's a few, but I think that in our lives, and especially as busy as we make our lives, I think being intentional in investments is something that is a challenge. We find too many excuses not to take time to invest in people. It becomes about, oh, if I have time for you, then I'll give you time. But we make it more about our own personal needs. So I work a job, I'm too busy, I don't have time to invest. And so what we end up doing is we have surface relationships and we have surface connections with people. I'll tag in with you for like 2 minutes on a Sunday, I'll tag in with you for 5 minutes on a Wednesday, but that's pretty much all I can give to you. And so we don't have meaningful relationships because we're not taking time to invest in those relationships. We're not taking time to say, I want to make it important that I get with you, so let me get my calendar out and schedule something with you. And so the challenge of maintaining those is stopping, it's focusing, it's being intentional, it's making it a priority. I feel is something that we lack because we're so focused on our busyness of our time. My family time, my priorities, and if I have time for you, I'll give it to you. But other than that, I'm not going to do that. As I feel like it's important. And we go through seasons. I feel like there are seasons in our lives where we're a little more available to people, and other seasons we're not. You're getting ready to have a baby. Congratulations.
Very
in a couple of
available.
days. And so you
you.
might not be as readily available for quite a few months because you've gotten the newness of a baby. Whereas others of us, it depends on what life is throwing us when we have that availability and not. So I feel like investments are a huge part of making relationships a priority.
Did you want to add anything to that, Daniel?
No, I thought she said what she said was really good. But I think as far as making people a priority, I think sometimes we do. At least with me, I'm selfish with my time sometimes.
Yeah.
So if people, it's going to take up my day or take up something I want to do, I'm like, well. And it's sometimes just the person I'm with, like the person who's trying to hang out with me, I'm like, well, I don't always get along with that person very well, or we don't have the similar interest. Sometimes I can want to be selfish and kind of do me. So.
Or
yeah.
might be awkward. I know I've
Awkward.
met people that we've all met that person. Let's be honest. You ask a question and they'll give you one word answers. And then you're
Yes.
like, okay.
It's like, where do I go from here now?
Now what do I do to continue this conversation? So I think it also depends on the people.
Right, and
who you're
I
with.
think that's where the art of knowing how to communicate
Yeah.
with people,
Yeah.
asking good questions.
Yeah.
Like people love to hear about themselves, right?
Right.
So you can ask them where you're from, what do you do for a hobby? Because that's one of the things, even when I worked, I may be getting off subject, but when I worked at the commissary as a bagger, I remember I had my main goal, I had a few minutes, obviously bagging their order. But I was like, I got 4 or 5 minutes to connect with this person. So what I would do is just start triggering questions about them. Be like, hey, what do you enjoy doing?
Yeah.
What do you do for a living? What's your favorite hobby? And that's how we try to get them connected to church. So learning to ask questions and be authentic about it too. Ask weird questions.
Well, it's interesting that you guys, both the things that you guys are saying, I'm gonna actually ask you a surprise question that's not even on it.
Okay.
But you just mentioned you got 4 to 5 minutes, right? I have
Yeah.
4 to 5 minutes to really connect with this person. You're talking about investing as well, and you say ask questions. At what point do you switch from asking questions and you find something to actually connect with them about to making it a mutual conversation rather than just it becoming a little bit of an interrogation?
You can go first.
I think it's when you know there's something you connect on. So like, you might meet that one random person. This is so bizarre, but we were in Italy and we were at this dinner table with a bunch of other people, and we were sitting next to this couple. And Anthony Bailey, they're from Illinois, and he just brought up where they were from. So where are you from? It's a very common question. Where are you from? Especially in this area, very transit. Where do you come from? Why are you here? And they lived like an hour away from where he lives. It's a very small world out there. And so once you find that point of connection, I think that's when you bounce off of, okay, well, let me go to my next question. You further go in depth with whatever you're talking about. So say you do meet somebody and you're talking and you're making connection and you happen to have family that lives in the same area. Then it becomes about, oh, do you know where such and such at, and such a restaurant, and where we went to school at. So I think you start with questions until something triggers a more common where you can go deeper, and then you just focus on that point is normally what I like to do, and bounce off of that. Not necessarily different questions, but staying on topic so that you can build a deeper connection of understanding of, wow, we have so much in common.
Absolutely. I think that makes you more relatable to them as well.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I can see we have this in common, and then it kind of builds from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. And before we go on any further, I want you guys to know that is the QR code up there. If you guys do have any questions while we're talking, feel free to submit some questions. I know, especially with a topic like this, you're probably going to have some. So feel free to submit some questions at the end of the lesson or at the end of the forum today if we have time. We're going to answer some of those questions. All right. Another surprise question,
Okay.
based off of really what you were talking about.
Okay.
You're talking about this idea of investing.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned that you're selfish with your time, which I can relate to. So how do you find that balance of, being healthy as an individual, finding the boundaries of your time versus actually making sure that you're investing in others and not knowing or not dealing with the burnout that
Yeah.
may come with that?
So this is what we do in our family, and this is what I love. So obviously we know we have work, so I can check off those hours of the day. And I know that like Wednesdays I've got church, that's an off night. I'm not going to schedule anything there. I know like right now in my life, every other Friday we have youth events, so I'm going to check those off. But I'm very intentional about looking at our calendar every month, and I see what days are free. And then I want to focus on, okay, I want to take at least 2 of those nights, and I want to invest in somebody. And I know that sounds kind of like a businessy kind of feel, like, oh, you're just making it so that you're planning out these times of friendship. And that's not necessarily the case until it becomes a natural thing. There's a group of people that I get together literally every month, and when we're at the end of that dinner, I'm like, okay, when are we meeting next month? And we schedule something that night for the next month. And so when I'm wanting to be intentional about my relationships, I look at my calendar and I will shoot them a text and be like, hey, I'm open this day and this day. When can we meet? Because I think you need to make it a thing that is not, oh, well, if I get to it, okay.
Yeah. 'Cause then it will
You
never
get to the end of
happen.
the month and it never happened. Then you're 3 months down the road, and then you're 4 months like, man, I have not talked to you in like forever. So I want to be very intentional about, okay, this is a family night, this is a church night, I have this Thursday and that Tuesday open. I'm going to see if I can get together with so-and-so. So as long as you're making it a priority, you can make it happen. And then it gets to the point, like I said, with that group, that at the end of the dinner, I don't want to go a month without scheduling something with them. So we make it and we schedule it that night. And it becomes a cycle of, I don't want to go that long without being around you.
So I think she's right. I think scheduling obviously is very important. But I noticed with us as people is if we really want to do something,
We'll do it.
we're gonna do it.
That's right.
We'll
We're gonna
find time
do
to do it. We'll make time to do it. Listen, I enjoy golf, so I'll do it sometimes, whatever I can sometimes to find the time to go golf, right? And whether that's sports or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I'll do what I can to make time to do what I want to do. Another thing that I do regarding people, like new people, I'll actually put in my phone these new people that have been here, and if I have their numbers, I'll try some point that week to try to contact them. Hey, you want to get together? Hey, how did you like church? Is there anything that we can do? Just letting them know that they were missed, or letting them know that, hey, they're vital or they're important to our church. So I think scheduling, being intentional about it, is eventually going to help you invest in people.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think that relationships have to be expensive. Like everything we do, we have to
Exactly.
go spend money. A text message doesn't cost you any money.
No money.
It's very free. A phone call and you spend 10 minutes on the phone. That doesn't cost you anything but time. And to us, time is very valuable. It's a very valuable thing. So if I'm taking the time, then I want you to know that you're important to me to be able to take the time. Not that it's like a duty, like, oh, okay, I've texted them. Oh, I texted them. I texted them. No, if I'm spending my time doing that, it matters to me. And so I want you to know that you matter to me. That's why I'm investing. That's why I'm sacrificing that time.
I think learning to be a people person.
Yeah.
I know that that's not easy for some people, but you got to work at it. Because if you're in business, if you're church is kind of like a business, but we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
So if you're not good at it, you have to say, I'm going to be very intentional to reach out to these people, to connect with these people, so I can invest in them. So I think being a people person is important.
I agree.
So.
I agree.
Well, that's really good. And then you guys kind of jumped to my next question already. But I was going to ask what tips would you give, but I'm hearing scheduling is a big tip, and it doesn't necessarily have to feel like a business venture. But this as we get older, as we become adults, as our families grow, as we get more people in our lives, it seems like that's just going to be something that we have to do is schedule around that and not feel weird about that.
Right.
And then just being intentional about it as well.
Right.
So. Were you about to say something?
No.
You look like you're about to say something. All right.
Well, I'm just saying that I think that it's something that when you're intentional about it, eventually it doesn't become like a task. It's a desire, it's a want, it's something that you love to do, and it doesn't feel, maybe at first it might feel a little bit like you're checking off a box, but then it doesn't become that way. That's, I think, just in general in life, when you do something enough that you like, you almost become passionate about it. And relationships, honestly, should be something you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
Are they hard sometimes? Absolutely, 1,000%. Do we have to struggle with them? And is it awkward at times? And do feelings get in the way? Yes.
Absolutely.
But are they worth it? Totally.
Totally.
Totally worth it.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well, when you look back over the years, what are some things that you would do differently as it pertains with relationships with others?
Okay, so this question to me, I feel hits a couple different areas, because if I'm telling you from just a person versus if I'm telling you from a pastor's wife perspective, they can be a little different, but I feel like they kind of go together. For me, all the way across the board, pastor's wife, person, friend, acquaintance, I feel as boundaries is something that I've learned in my age, my young, old age, is boundaries are important. That it's not about, what do I mean by boundaries? I mean setting up parameters for yourself. One, like my time for me is just as valuable for myself as it is for you. So if I feel burnt out, like we talked about, if I feel overwhelmed, then I need to schedule time for myself. So if you say, hey, I want to meet with you Tuesday, and that's my only free day, as much as I love you, as much as I want to be around you, I don't owe you any explanations, but I'm sorry I'm not available that night. Why? I'm going to sit at home in my pajamas and I'm going to stare at the wall. That's literally what I'm going to do. And for me, that's okay. But that's a boundary that I had to set. I had to learn, because I think we get to the point sometimes, if we're not careful, is we just give. So we can be selfish. Trust me, we can all. But sometimes you can go too far on the other end too. And even with friends, you can just give too much. And so you don't have that boundary set up of, okay, I will give, but there's certain times that I'm just going to have to say no. And I think another boundary that set up is I also feel like we have to give everything. There is sometimes too much oversharing. And for me, I felt like the only way I could be close to people is if I told them everything about myself, all my feelings, all my things that maybe I've made mistakes, or my quirks, or just everything. And that can get a little tricky, because then either people use it against you, We've all had that happen. They bring it back up. Or you share too much and the people aren't comfortable with what you're sharing. I think you have to know your friends. I think you have to, whenever I start a new friendship or a new relationship, or even when I've been in a while, you have to be aware of, am I just dumping on you to dump on you who I am and everything? Or can you handle that? Are you able to handle that? That's a boundary I think that you need to be aware of, is that not everybody can handle some of the things that you throw on them. And are you doing it just to get it off your chest? Are you doing it to help them in any way? Will it help them? Most times, some of it might be a hindrance to them. It might be a hindrance to their walk with God. It might be a hindrance to their faith. So I think the boundary of know your audience, know who you're talking with, and know what the relationship is, and be willing to say, okay, I can share and I can be myself. I'm not saying be fake or lie, but I'm saying be yourself, but know your limits in that relationship. So I feel like boundaries for me is something I've had to learn, honestly. I was very young when I became a pastor's wife, and so I'm just like, here's all of me. And all of me was too much sometimes. And so I had to learn to rein that in and know my people and who I'm around and what I need to share and what I don't.
Well, I notice even with you is you're very authentic too. So in the sense, like when we've had communications, you being honest actually has helped me though. Yeah. So I think having boundaries, knowing who your audience is very important. But going to your questions for me, something I probably wish I probably could change is being a little patient with people, especially when people in church. Sometimes with me, and I get burdened for people a lot. For instance, my wife and I, even when we first got married, I would go to a mall and I would just look at people and instantly I would start judging them, unfortunately. Like, why do they do that? Like, I get such a burden. Like, I want them to be right, but I'm trying to figure out, like, why are they look that way, why they're acting. So she actually encouraged me. She's like, you need to understand where those people are coming from. You need to understand, like, they may not have had a mom and dad that were in church that taught you right from wrong. So that kind of really challenged me. You know what? I need to be patient with people. I need to obviously be patient, but learning to love and figure out where they come from. And another thing I think I've struggled when it comes to people as well, that I probably am still working on and wishing I could change, is we have this motto in church where, like, whether there's a situation, whether there's a person, we always say that phrase, oh, we're going to pray for that person, or let's take it to prayer, which we do, but then we go eat that person for lunch by complaining or talking about them. And I've been guilty of that, where I'm like, well, we need to pray about that situation, whether it's the church, and then we go and then we end up talking bad about that person or about that situation. So I'm like learning to give that to God. So those are things that I would probably say that I wish I could change or be better at when it comes to relationships, so.
So boundaries in a relationship, being able to set up those boundaries, having balance in your boundaries, that's one of the things I think, just to add my 2 cents in here, that's probably one of the hardest things that I could think of in relationships, and which is what makes relationships such a complicated dynamic,
Right.
You got people that just don't know how to have relationships. You got people that try to, that they're not successful at it, and it could be very overwhelming trying to enter into a relationship, and then that's any type of relationship. That's a friendship, that's an acquaintanceship, that's a romantic relationship, a mentorship. Boundaries is one of the things that if you don't have good boundaries for yourself and for them, it can be very difficult to know where that relationship is going to go. Right. So,
and you can get sucked into even their drama,
Amen.
or their baggage or their background, and not stand up for yourself and what you believe and what you know is what your standards are. I know that everybody has a story. Everybody's story is so different. And so what we bring into every relationship is what we've brought from our past. And some of us, like myself, I've had to learn, like, for instance, me, I was a horrible communicator when I got married. Horrible. Super bad at it. And that was because of what I had felt like I'd experienced growing up, of just, I was raised by my dad, single dad. And so when you're a single parent, you don't share everything, all the feelings, all the whatever. It's here's what you need to know, and that's it. And so communicating like back and forth about things sometimes was a little more shut down from my perspective. And so when my husband was like, hey, we're going to have this discussion, I'm like, no.
Nope.
He's like, you're going to talk to me. No, I'm not. Yes, no, I'm not. And I just learned to just shut that down until he was like, we can't have an effective relationship without communication. And so I think that one of the biggest things, if we're going into every friendship, every relationship, is you have to learn how to communicate to that person specifically.
Exactly. It's so
You
good.
can't use the same model across
so
the board.
good.
It just does not work because every person's trauma, lifestyle, how they were raised
Yep.
is so vastly different. So if you want to be effective in having a really, really good relationship, you have to learn how to communicate to that person specifically.
It's so good.
And it's going to be different to every person.
I think that kind of goes back to what you said earlier, intentional. You know, you can't have that level of know your audience or know how to communicate with them or know what they're capable of receiving. You mentioned in the answer to this question as well. You know, I don't know what they're ready to hear from me.
Right.
You know, what am I going to say something that they're going to use against me or maybe even overwhelm them? You can't know that stuff without being intentional with people. So if you're just trying to get into a relationship with someone, again, and that's a very broad umbrella term, but if you're trying to get into a relationship with someone and you're not being intentional about it,
Yeah.
the relationship's going to die almost immediately.
That's right.
Absolutely. And that's why the investment part is so important, the upfront investment. Sure, it's going to seem a little shallow at first and it's going to be a little uncomfortable and there may not be a lot of connections, but once you establish those connections and that person knows that you love them not because you know everything about them, but you love what you're learning about them and you love spending time with them, then the investment will be returned back to you and that becomes a mutual thing. But it does take some time to get to where, okay, how can I communicate with you effectively? It's like some people need words of affirmation. They
Yeah.
need a lot of, some people need a lot of doting on and words of affirmation. And other people are like, ew, that's too mushy for me. Do not do that. But when you see me, you better have a candy bar for me. You better have a gift for me. You better have something because I am a gift person. I love to receive gifts. You don't know that until you take time to learn that about people. That's where the investment comes, and it can be a little weird, but it's well worth it.
And I think you're so right when it comes about investing and being intentional because everyone comes from either a different culture, different background, different perspective, and you trying to communicate to them and trying to be effective. Like for instance, my wife and I, when we have a disagreement, I'm like, let's come out, let's talk about it. She'll shut down, and I'll get really upset. Like, we're gonna figure this out right now, and then I've learned, okay, I got to give her time.
Right.
I got to let her process things, and then we can come together
Right.
and resolve the conflict. So I think you hit it right on. Being intentional and knowing who you're talking to. So good.
Yeah, and this, I have to be very careful, like when I'm up here, because as you guys know, I went to school for counseling, and so when I start hearing these things, like I really just want to start like jumping into like statistics and research and all this other stuff, but when it comes to relationships, intentionality is very, very important. It really is. At the end of the day, it is. And again, if you're not being intentional with the person on the other side of that relationship, and you make it all about you and how you're feeling in the moment and how my right to feel, you're gonna forget about that person, and then they're gonna build up a wall, and then that relationship's just gonna die. You mentioned you would tell your wife, no, we're gonna have this conversation right now, because something would raise up in you, and a lot of times it happens with a lot of us. Something raises up in us, and we have to manage our emotions right there in that moment. It's about what we need. But if we can take the moment to stop and say, what do they need?
Right.
What do they need in this moment? Do they need that minute to go away and process this? That's sacrifice and it's intentionality.
Well, that's because I think our society has created this, everything needs to be done so fast. We got fast food. We've got our phones now are with us. We can look up anything super fast. Like you can Google something and know it right away. You don't have to go find a computer and wait for it to boot up. You literally can have everything at your fingertips. So we expect relationships to be the same way.
That's so good.
I want an answer right now. I'm mad at you. I want you to apologize to me immediately and just get over it by tomorrow. That's not how that works.
That's right.
That's
No, it's not.
how that
Relationships
works.
take work, right?
They do take work. And so even when we get frustrated, we want the problem to go away immediately sometimes.
That's so
Doesn't
true.
work that way. That's even relationships with like parenting and kids. Sometimes my sweet, amazing daughter, as perfect as she may think that she is, would make me so mad sometimes. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you for like 3 days. Like I will, hi, how are you? But to have the relationship part of it, I'm not going to give that to you because I'm mad at you right now. And so I'm going to process what I want to say and how I want to respond. Because what happens when we're mad and everything turns to this instant thing, instant gratification of let's deal with it now, is that's when we say things we don't mean.
That's right.
That's when we get into arguments that we would have never had we just taken some time. And is it a couple awkward days? Of course. It's like tension, especially between females, and my husband's like, y'all need to talk. No, I'm not ready to talk to her right now. I'll talk
Yeah,
to her when
I
I'm ready
agree.
to talk to her. And then, which is kind of a good thing sometimes, make people sit on ice a little bit. And like, you cool down, I'm going to cool down. But then we really get to the root of the matter instead of my feelings controlling where we're at. When you step back in a relationship and let that kind of calm down, then you can be a little more clear-minded of, okay, what am I really feeling and why am I feeling it?
So good.
Why did you poke the bear basically and make me mad in that moment? I'm responding off my anger versus what I really do truly feel. And let's get to the root of the matter, because what we've always said, my husband says in marriage counseling all the time, when you have an argument, you attack the problem, not the person.
That's right.
And so this like quick, we got to fix it now, doesn't always work, because then you attack the person and not the problem.
That's so true. I think understanding the big picture, like when I'm in a conflict with my wife and all that, I'm going to make this work because I'm committed to it. You know what I mean? So I can't allow my feelings and all that. And like she said, you say words that you wish you could take back, and then you end up damaging, and you got to try to figure all that out. And in all reality, it's just if I would just sit back, understand where she's coming from, and it's probably the majority of me that was the issue, and then realize the common goal is I'm committed to this relationship. You know, and not even just a spouse, but a friendship between me and Lucas. Like, we have kids involved. We got wives involved. I'm not going to allow a little fence or something that's so silly to keep us from being friends that could affect our children being friends or affect our relationship with God. The big picture is I love him. He's my brother. We have kids connected. We have wives connected. The bigger picture is, you know, we're going to grow together and let's build this friendship until we die. So,
How many would say you have a need to be right?
yeah, I think
Right?
all
You have,
of our
you have,
hands-
I think if we're being honest, we all can
Three-fourths of
say
the time.
I saw your wife's hand go
we
up,
have
so.
we have a need to be right. Okay.
Right.
It's not in your social hierarchy of needs, but I would put it in there. There's a need to be right. And
You want to be validated.
Yeah.
You wanna
Yes.
be
and part of the problem is in those moments that you're talking about, in those heated moments, again, spousal relationships, friendships, whatever. You know, me and Daniel have been in those.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
we've known each other for years. We're like brothers. I mean, literally since we were 2 years old, or maybe he was 3 at the time. I don't know. But since we were kids, there's a need to be right. And what's controlling you in that moment? What's driving you in that moment of the debate or of the argument or of the conflict? Is it your need to repair a relationship, or is it your need to be right?
That's it.
And that can be very, very damaging if not done properly.
Right.
But I think this kind of leads us to our next question, right? And something that you said earlier kind of triggered this as well. You mentioned, you know, when you invest, when you're intentional, you know, you're going to get that back. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't, which leads to hurts in relationships. Or when we're in these conflicts, sometimes that need to be right really just dominates and a relationship is damaged. And so when dealing with people, hurt and disappointment, I mean, it's absolutely inevitable. So how can people learn to forgive, and what can they do to get over being offended?
Well, I think we all need to understand that we're imperfect. All of us
That's
are.
so true.
We're imperfect people that live in an imperfect world. I'm going to hurt you. Period. There's no more discussion there. You're going to hurt me. Period. We know this. We try to act like it's not going to happen. We have this philosophy or this mindset that, oh, you know, when you first meet someone, that it's all like rainbows and butterflies and roses and everything's perfect because you've not had any conflict. And that's what I always tell people, especially my daughter, Alana. I was telling her the other day, I said, right now everything's hunky-dory. She's got friendships. I said, wait until you have that first conflict. It's coming. You're going to have a conflict. You're going to have a disagreement. You're not going to see eye to eye on everything. That's when it matters.
Yeah.
That's when it shows your character. That's when it shows your intentionality on how much you value that person. And maybe it's new friendship. Okay, so let's just say we're starting a brand new relationship with somebody, new friendship. It's already a little awkward. You don't know too much about this person. You're trying to get your foot in the ground or in the door and trying to figure out, you know, ebbs and flows. Is it going to work? Because sometimes that's how it feels. I don't even know if this is going to work out or not. And then that first conflict comes, and maybe it's soon. And you're like, oh, man. You have two options. One, you can shut the door immediately and say, well, that didn't work, and kind of blame it on that person. Well, that didn't work.
Almost
Okay.
justifiably.
That's
Yeah.
right. Must be them. It's never me. It's got to be them. Shut that door and walk away. And you don't feel like you've lost a lot because you haven't invested a lot yet. Okay, well, that's one option. Or you could say, you know what? That was a little bump in the road. Let's see how it goes. Now, it may fizzle out eventually, And yes, friendships, when you first meet somebody, like, man, I feel like I've known them forever. We're going to be the best of friends. And it doesn't work out. And that's okay. But then if I had stopped at that first conflict and never took the time to get past that to see where it goes and let that small offense goes, they truly could become like the best of
The
friends.
best friends.
But how often do we say, nope, I'm not even going to spend any more time because they hurt me? And we just shut it down immediately, and we don't take the time to see where it will go.
And I think a lot of people, they're afraid of conflict.
Yeah, they are.
Special, because that's my feelings. I'm gonna get hurt. You know what I mean? And or I want it my way, and then they're afraid of just trying to get to the point of the issue and say, you know what, we're gonna go beyond what we're going through so we can make this friendship work.
Right. And it
So
kind of boils back to the beginning of you have to have good communication skills
being
to talk
intentional.
it through. Maybe they need a couple days. Give them a couple days.
Absolutely.
Don't demand a response based off of your hurt feelings. Like, I need to fix this now. Give them a couple days. Come to a mutual time where you can sit down and talk about it. Talk it through and then make decisions from there. But I think that hurts are going to come. We cannot be so naive. Well, I'm a Christian. I go to church. I'm never going to get hurt. That's a lie.
Definitely.
That's a big lie.
That's a lie. And the closer you get to people, guess what? They're going to hurt you more than those that you aren't that close to. They will
That's
hurt
right.
you deeper, and they will slash you deeper, and it will hurt. But that's okay because you know that you can repair that
Exactly.
if you're intentional about repairing it. If you dwell on it and it lets you eat you alive and you never stop thinking about it, you never stop talking negative about it, guess what? You're never going to get over that. You
And-
got to be intentional.
I agree. And relationships come with a certain level of vulnerability.
Yeah,
Every
exactly.
relationship comes with vulnerability. And here's the thing, all right? Think about how much someone hurts you in a relationship. You have the same ability to hurt them,
Exactly.
all right? And for every time you've been hurt, how many times have you hurt somebody else
And not know it.
and not know it? That's the thing that a lot of times we don't think about in relationships, you know? It's always like, man, I got hurt. This person did that to me. But I personally, I had to come face to face with that a while back. I was, dealing with some offenses, and I was like, you know what? Who have I done this to? Who have I been the villain, the person that I'm thinking is my villain right now? Who have I been to that? Who have I been in that person's life? Like somebody else that I didn't even know about. So there's a level of vulnerability that comes with relationships in general. And you're right. I mean, you have to be intentional with it, and you have to be willing to, make the step past that first bump in the road, or understand that conflict is eventually going to bring us closer. 'Cause that's what it does. When you look at your relationship with your spouse or your friends or your family, a lot of times you can go back to some conflict that you had and you laugh about it in the future,
Exactly.
right? You end up laughing about it.
like,
Me
was I
and Daniel,
thinking?
there are many things that we can go back and laugh about. About it. Sometimes he's called me a barking chihuahua. It is what it is. So it's just,
incredible.
but
His mouth
conflict.
just-
Yeah, but conflict breeds, intimacy. It breeds
does.
closeness.
It does.
And you can't have a certain level of intimacy and closeness without that level of conflict.
right.
So you have to be open to that vulnerability.
That's right.
And if you're not open to that vulnerability, again, the relationship's just going to fizzle out and it's going to die.
Yeah. And some of those things you have to reflect on yourself a little bit and say, why am I taking it so personally?
Yep.
Is it me? Like, am I the problem, but in the sense of like, okay, if I can't move past this, why can't I move past this? Am I the problem?
Yeah.
I need to dig a little deeper and see if there's something I need to change about myself to move past this hurt. Or is it just all them? Because we like to push blame. It's
We
them,
do.
it's them, they hurt me, they did this, they did that. Well, sometimes they do that. Yes, they are that person. But how we control our hurt will determine what kind of person we are if you let it go, or if you hold on to it, or if you hold it against them and never let them even try to somewhat give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're having a horrible day. Maybe something tragic happened in their life that you don't know about that caused them to lash out at you. Like me and my husband, and I'll just be a little open here, I guess, sometimes. He's the pastor, I'm the pastor's wife, and you all are a beautiful church. Most of the time, what we argue about is your guys' problems. And we'll take sides. And we'll be in this discussion, and I'll finally stop. I'm like, why are we arguing about their issues? Doesn't
That is
even
awesome.
pertain to us. But you kind of that's how you get involved. You take on other people's things, and you have to realize, okay, wait, that's
That's
not
awesome.
mine to take on. And really, what are we arguing about, and why are we arguing about it?
That's those boundaries you were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Boundaries. We'll
That's
discuss it,
awesome.
but we're not getting an argument over it.
All right. Well, one more question I have, and we have quite a few questions already coming in, so I want to at least take some time to get to those in a minute. But I'm going to ask this question. So a lot of people today seem reluctant, right, to build meaningful relationships. Daniel, earlier you mentioned that people are scared of conflict.
Yeah.
And that may be a reason that people are reluctant to build meaningful relationships. What would you say to people who are afraid or reluctant to build meaningful relationships?
Good.
Go ahead.
I think people that aren't willing to be committed, it's easy to find fault in other people. But if you have a mindset, hey, I'm going to be committed to that relationship, you may recognize a fault, but be willing to, hey, we're going to put this together and for the friendship. So, and then when it comes to be relentless, I would try to encourage them to realize the benefits of having that relationship, or benefit of having people in your life that you can go to. You know, I know there's going to be hurts, and I know there's going to be issues that you're facing, but you having that friendship, being there to go side by side, and I think of even pastors, Sister Christian, even my own personal family, making it personal, but I can tell, even though maybe they have done us wrong, or not done us wrong, but there's been maybe hurts in the past, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt how much they have meant to our family. And just being able to express that to the person, hey, there's a benefit in having friends. Yeah. There's a benefit of having someone in your corner, despite the conflict, despite the things that may cause division. There's a benefit to it. Yeah. So
I would say it's worth it. It's worth every trial. It's worth every attempt. It's worth every sometimes failure. People in your life sometimes are seasonal. They're there for a short time. But while they're there for that short time, let them benefit your life. Because if you allow yourself to become in relationships with people, not only will it hopefully benefit them because you're a positive person or you're a good influence on them, but it will challenge you. Every relationship I have challenges me to be a better person and to be more committed and more dedicated. So yes, people will walk out of your life, and does it leave a little bit of a gap? Sure. Does it hurt? Every single time. Do you have to get over it? Of course you do. But then do I say, well, I'm never making friends again because that hurt too bad? No. I would rather say that I lived my life investing in people and having relationships, and I died knowing that I loved people and was hurt by people, but I loved them in spite of it, and we had meaningful relations because it's an experience. Having a friendship is an experience that you get to grow and you get to develop, you get to make memories, you get to just do life together. And I would rather have this tribe of people that I'm doing life with than to be by myself and say, oh, well, it hurt too bad to put myself out there, so I stopped doing that. I don't want to be that person.
I refuse to be vulnerable anymore.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that as well, you know, I mean, I could ask anybody, right? Yeah. Who are the most meaningful people in your life besides your family? Everybody's got somebody, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody has someone. Well, guess what? That person at one point was a stranger in your life. You knew nothing about them. I've talked with my wife about this before. I was like, there was one point in time I knew literally nothing about you. You were an absolute stranger to me.
Right.
And now I couldn't be any closer. I couldn't be closer.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
You couldn't imagine your life without her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there are other friends. You know, I have friends that I met 10, 15 years ago that at one point they were strangers and we argued and it was weird. Sometimes it felt awkward.
Right.
But they became very meaningful, influential people in my life that I love and I couldn't imagine life without.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you know, they were strangers at one time. And you can't have those people become influential and meaningful people in your life, and you can't be that with them.
Right.
Unless you're willing to take that first step and actually start a relationship with them.
Right.
So we got a couple questions that came in.
Good.
Okay.
Two of them are kind of along the same lines. So I'm going to try to combine them, right? So basically at what point do you draw a line when you feel like a relationship is one-sided? When do you say, okay, enough is enough? Like, I've invested so much into this relationship, and this has become a one-sided relationship.
Yeah.
When is it okay to say, all right, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and end this relationship?
And
That's a good question.
that is a very good question. I think that you have to know the person. And here's why I say that. Because sometimes you're going to be the one giving. Now, if they don't know that they're not giving back to you, one, you need to communicate that. Because some people don't realize they're not giving anything back to you. So it feels one-sided because you're giving and you're not receiving, but have you communicated to them that you're not receiving what you need from them? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know that when you're together that it seems like you're having a good time, it seems like everything's flowing, you're having fun, but maybe you're not getting. So like, I'll relate back to my husband. If I need something from him, I just tell him, hey, this is what I need from you. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. I'll give it to you. It's that easy. It's that simple. But sometimes I think we feel hindered with friends to say, you know what? I love you, but I don't feel like I'm receiving that love back in such a way. Like maybe you need more time. Maybe you need more validation. Maybe you need whatever. So I think before you cut the friendship off and say, you know what? I gave, they didn't give. Are you letting them know what you need from them to validate you? And if you don't do that, then that's unfair to them because they can't even show you that they want to give that to you. I feel like there are friends that you can still be casual with and not completely cut out of your life, but not maybe invest as much time. And that will be on you because if you're always the one, hey, let's set a date, let's set a date, let's set a date, and they're never the one saying that, then if you slowly make those gaps a little bigger, guess what? It'll fade out unnaturally. This is what I don't feel you need to do. I don't feel you need to go to that person and say, you're not giving me what I need, and you don't validate me, and you don't schedule stuff with me. This is a one-time friendship. I'm never talking to you again. You don't need to do that. You don't need to make it a conflict unnecessarily. Like we said, if you don't invest time, naturally things are going to fade in the background. So I think that you should express what you need. If that doesn't work, then just naturally let time spread you out to where, oh, wait, well, we don't really hang out that much as we used to.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like you said, communicating, we have to be willing to be the bigger person and be able to go and tell them. Because sometimes we do allow, I don't want to tell them because I'm going to offend them. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? It's going to be weird when we see each other. But if that person, if you truly care about that person and you want that relationship to work, being honest with them, going there and communicating, and then being wise. That's what.
And communication is a whole art.
There
is an art to it. It's not, sometimes if you go in the wrong way and just say, you don't love me, they're like, what? And if you go and say, this is how I feel. I don't feel like I'm receiving from you, and this is how I can receive from you, is totally different than accusing them of something. Don't ever go in and accusing people of things.
No,
That's just tip number one with communication. Go in asking. I'm going to give you a secret tip. If you ever go to talk to somebody about communication, always, instead of saying, you did, you don't, what, I feel that you don't. I feel because that's what I'm feeling, and it could be completely wrong, then they can adjust my feelings with their response. But as a side
Another
note.
thing I would say, just to add on to that, is think about your disposition when you're going to that person as well, right?
That's good.
That's really important, because if you're going to someone from a place of power over them, you need to change this X, Y, and Z. You know, I am not getting this. I need to get this, or we're done, or our friendship is over. I've been guilty of that. You know, that's how I know that's not the way to do it. You know, it's
Ultimatum is not going to work.
Ultimatums don't work. You know, you know, I'm very much, I can be that guy. Like, you know, hey, this is what I need, or you know, we're gonna get cut off here. That doesn't work. It doesn't give anything to the relationship, right? It doesn't even create any type of intimacy after that. So think about your disposition when approaching those people. You know, you go to them in humility. You know,
That's so true.
you feel
That's
wronged already, but it doesn't matter. If this is something that you care about, if this is a relationship that you want to see go somewhere, you go to them in humility and then talk about it. And then if that doesn't work, then you can make the decision on your own. All right, like Sister Kristen said, all right, we're just going to let time do its thing. Yeah. And then if they ever come back and try to say, hey, you haven't been reaching out to me, you can kind of have that conversation with them. Like, look, I tried. I came and talked to you, and this is where we are now. You know, I would love to have a relationship with you, but it's kind of on you at this point.
Right. You could be right in something, but be saying it wrong. You know what I mean? And that's that's been knowing the person you're talking to, being intentional, and being able to communicate effectively is important.
We got one more question really quickly because we got like 2 minutes. So if transparent communication comes with trust, which takes time, what are some key factors to develop trust in the short term in order to develop deeper relationships?
I think just being honest with people and being careful about how you express that honesty. So like somebody asks you a tough question, again, your attitude, the tone in which you say it, and you can even be honest and say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable answering that right now, or that is an excellent question, but I need to process it first. Will you let me think about it so that I can come back and express it the way I want to express it? I think that building trust is a time factor. That's where the investment, I feel, comes in at the beginning, because when I go into a relationship, I'm going to go in giving you the benefit of the doubt on everything. I don't know your story. I don't know your background. I don't know your history. I'm going to be wide open. Then I'm going to see, can I trust you with little things?
That's good.
I'm gonna put little nuggets out there. And again, that's where I used to just like dump it all and realize that's not the wisest thing to do sometimes. So let me give you a little nugget and see if I can trust you. And what Daniel talked about was, will I hear that it comes through the cycle of other people? That's a way to build trust. Will I hear or feel that you'll use it against me in any way? That's a way to build trust. Or will I see that you bring it back up in our conversation, but in a positive way, and that you've kind of re-implied it, and you listened to me, you heard me, but yet you're making it a part of our relationship because you're building us up together because you are listening. It matters to you what I'm saying. Then I can trust you that this matters as much to me as it does to you because you're bringing it back up. So I think there's little things that you can do to build that trust, and they're going to break it. But if it's been established enough, then you'll know that I'm willing to keep trusting and keep rebuilding and trying to put it back into that.
What she just said. That was really
Amen.
good.
Amen. Well, thank you both for joining us. I hope you guys had a good time listening to the First Things Forum today. That was very good.
Yeah.
That concludes our series on Christian wellness. Relationships matter.